So far, we have used the Azure Management Portal to perform our administration, but most of us will want to use PowerShell as well to perform either day-to-day administration tasks or bulk repetitive tasks, run PowerShell workflows, that sort of thing. So to do that, we need to link our PowerShell management console, or the ISE, to our Azure subscriptions. To start off, we need to make sure we've got the latest PowerShell module for Azure installed. So I've come here to azure.microsoft.com and I've selected the download section where we can find the latest SDKs, and if you scroll down, latest command line tools for PowerShell. For Azure. So on the left hand side there you can see PowerShell. In the middle you've got the Windows cross-platform command line tool, which is well worth having a look at, particularly if you want to manage Azure from the command line from a non-Microsoft operating system. And on the right hand side you've got the AZ copy command line tool, which is useful for copying blobs up into blob storage. For now, what I really want you to do is to select underneath Windows PowerShell, choose install, and that will install the Azure PowerShell module. Once installed, we can open up a PowerShell session. And what you should find is once this PowerShell session is opened up, that all the Azure PowerShell commandlets are available. So if I do get Azure VM, for example, that's a PowerShell commandlet that's only there because I've installed the PowerShell module. But we do have an issue here. If I run this commandlet, get Azure VM, how does my PowerShell session know to send that command to my Azure subscription and not somebody else's? Well, the fact is that prior to running that command, I have linked this PowerShell session to my Azure subscription. Now, to do this, we use one of two methods. The newer method is the add Azure account method. And we've got a commandlet here called add-Azure account. If I press enter, it opens up a sign-in tool. And it's worth pointing out here that you will need, in order to run this commandlet, you will need the sign-in assistant software installing first. Again, you can download that from Microsoft website. Here I can provide my email address that I've got associated with my subscription, and it asks me for a password as well, and that'll create a connection for me between PowerShell here on my laptop and my subscription for this session. Now, this can be quite useful method if we're using a temporary computer, if we're hot desking, and we don't want to leave any information around on the computer that might give other people access to our subscription later on. So I could run that method now, and then use that method now, and then when I close PowerShell sessions down, that connection will be removed. For a more permanent connection to your Azure subscription, we can run this command, get-azure publish setting file. Now, when we run this command, it will open up a browser and again ask us for our email address and password that are associated with our subscription. It will log us in, find our subscription details, and then create a certificate file, a publish setting file that has all our subscription details inside. We can download that file and then import it locally. Then, whenever we run a commandlet, an Azure commandlet, that publish setting file is then used to authenticate us against our Azure subscription. It's a more permanent method. It means that when I run this once, all I have to do in the future is open up PowerShell, and any time I run commandlets like get Azure VM, they're run against my subscription. So if I run this method, get Azure publish setting file, you see it opens up in Explorer. I can choose, because I've logged in several times before, I can choose one of my logged in accounts. and it asks me for my password. I sign in, and once I sign in, or during the signing process, it's generating the published setting file for me that's associated with my different subscriptions. And now, because I've got several different subscriptions and directory services associated with my account, you may only have one. I've got to choose the appropriate subscription file and submit the request, and any second now we'll be asked to download that file. So I say save as. Now when you save this file, give it a name. So give it a nice name that you can remember, and also download it somewhere that you can remember as well. So give it a nice name, download it somewhere you can remember. So we save that file. Once saved locally, we can close down Explorer now. We can go back to PowerShell and we use the command import dash Azure publish setting file. Import dash Azure publish setting file. We provide then a path to the file we've just downloaded. So import dash Azure publish setting file minus publish setting file, and then the path to the file we've downloaded. Now that will then import the file for us, and if we do get dash Azure subscriptions, get dash Azure subscriptions, it will show you details of the publish setting file. Again, if you've got multiple subscriptions associated with your account, those subscriptions will appear in that publish setting file. And here you can see I've got 2 subscriptions associated with my publish setting file. Now there's going to be a couple of things you will want to do before you start issuing PowerShell commands. Now the first is that if you're creating VMs or working with any objects that require storage, then what you're probably going to want is to set a default storage account. That way you don't have to reference storage accounts every time you upload a VHD or every time you create a VM. To do that, you've got the command set dash Azure subscription, and we can say minus current storage account name there, and provide the name of the storage account, and then that name of the storage account then becomes our default storage. Now you'll probably want to use that with the subscription name parameter as well. If you've got multiple subscriptions in your publish setting file, you'll need the subscription name parameter so it knows which of the subscriptions you want to assign the storage account to. The other thing you may want to do is run the select dash Azure subscription commandlet, and with this commandlet you can provide subscription name, and you can say minus current. You got minus current there, and when you change the current subscription, you can also change the default parameter as well. It will set one of your subscriptions to be the default subscription that's used. So by getting Azure publish setting file, importing the Azure publish setting file, setting a storage account, and then if you have multiple subscriptions, setting one of them as the default as well, using select Azure subscription, every time you open up PowerShell now, these settings will be saved and will automatically connect you to your Azure subscription. Now, if you don't like the idea of this method, then each time you run a PowerShell commandlet or PowerShell script, or you open up a PowerShell session and you want to work with Azure, then use the add-Azure account commandlet, and that'll prompt you for credentials there and then. Both methods are perfectly acceptable. Now we've got our connection. when we run commands against, or we run the Azure commandlets, like get Azure VM, it'll run them against our subscription and nobody else's. Thank you.